ShareChat, and today I'll be talking about feed generation at ShareChat. But before going into the talk itself, how many people out here know about ShareChat, what it is? Yeah, quite a few. So ShareChat is India's largest vernacular social network platform. It's vernacular because it's present only in the Indian languages. So 15 Indian languages so far. There is no support for English on our platform, and our aim is to give the digital window to next billion users. So a lot of users in tier 2, tier 3 cities, rural cities, even people in urban areas which cannot speak English languages. So if we look ShareChat as a social network, right? Like Twitter, even in previous talk, it was mentioned that it's a public platform. So similarly, ShareChat is a many-to-many broadcast network, and the idea is that we have to enable very easy content discovery and people discovery for first-time internet users that are coming online. So there are three major components to our app: Explore, Chat, and Feed. Feed is the primary component. It is the landing page of the ShareChat. And in this talk, I'll talk about like how we generate this feed and why it is important that we have a simple feed for this next generation of the internet users. So before we go further, let me give some statistics to understand what scale we are talking about when we are designing any algorithm. So we have 100 million plus downloads and APK shares, 85 million plus monthly active users, and this 85 million plus monthly active users are generating 30 million plus content every month. So, and it is completely in the regional languages. So the users that we have, the data that we are seeing is first time seen in the Indian networks. Again, because of we being vernacular and bringing on this first time internet users into this digital space. Right? So let's try to understand what kind of users we have. We know that internet has evolved a lot, and with the 4G, Geo, Airtel, everybody has got a cheap data phone and a cheap smartphone. But majority of these people don't know how to use a smartphone, and majority of these people lie in this regional language users set, right? And all our users belong to this latest generation of the internet users who are regional language speaking users. So it's very important to understand these users before we design any data science algorithm for it. So eventually we want to show them the content, but it's very important to understand what content they want and what are their key characteristics. So first thing is I am saying it's a regional set of users, right? And again, this is being validated by this report, Internet in India 2017. 9.2 out of 10 users coming online, they don't speak English or they don't understand English. So it's very important that there should be interfaces where they have support for their native languages. And considering India is home to 22 different languages, from data science perspective, this raises a lot of problems. So maybe natural language processing, computer vision, you will see that you will have to build a lot of translation systems. Uh, ShareChat is trying to unify all the users in all the languages across India onto one platform. So we have to solve those kinds of problem when we are working with this user base. The second important thing about this user base is how do you enable the content discovery. So again, in previous talk it was mentioned there is the search, for example, for fact checking is very difficult in rural areas. People will not open Google, they cannot search it. So all the apps like Facebook, Google, Twitter, they require some kind of manual effort for reaching the content that you want, for reaching the right information. For example, in Google you will have to write the search query and then browse through the list that you have for the results that you want. Similarly, like Facebook, you want to have users create a friends network, or even on Instagram and Twitter you want to have a follower followee kind of network. So for this generation of internet users it's very difficult. They are not that tech savvy, they are not very sophisticated users, they are first time using smartphone itself. How would they understand these complex interfaces? So at ShareChat, what we have done is instead of asking them to create a follower-following relationship, or instead of trying to build their own community, instead of trying to enter a search in a search engine, we have created this simple feeds for content discovery. So the idea is as soon as any user opens the app, he should get the content that he want. That is the most relevant to him. So that's where we solve it algorithmically using the feed generation algorithm. Again, there are multiple challenges when we have this, because our user base is very heterogeneous. So multiple languages are there, and there are multiple categories of content. There are multiple categories of locations that we have. So the aim is that this simple feed, just one feed, should show all kind of contents, and it should be personalized for every user. The final thing that I want to talk about this set of users is what kind of content they want. So, with on WhatsApp groups, you might have seen a lot of this content floating around, which is about like this niche genres, right? So, romance, relationship, humor, fun. So, along with a lot of popular genres, politics, news, we also have this VC content. So, this is a graph where we have plotted like most viewed genre on ShareChat, and we see that a lot of these niche genres dominate the popular genres like news and politics. And reason is not that we are promoting any such kind of content, but for this new set of users, this is the content which they want. And over the time, this content preference also changes. So as they spend more time on internet, they become more educated, and the accessibility to the information in other genres also become easier for them. So they have very high varied content preferences for these niche genres along with the popular genres. So overall, like these are the three major important points we should keep in mind about this next billion users. First thing is they need simple feeds for content discovery. They are not tech savvy. They cannot do Google searches. They cannot go and create their friends network. They are definitely not comfortable in English, so they need content in their own languages. And we need to have varied content preferences. So again, India is a diverse country, and everybody have their own preference. So for example, if news is a content, I might be interested in what is happening in my neighborhood, my city, my state, my global level, and this preferences changes for every user. I might be interested in sports, but not let's say cricket, or I don't want to deep dive in cricket, let's say, right? I just want to look at what is happening in World Cup. But other place, there might be a user who wants a very detailed information about cricket. So the diversity has to make sure that we capture these varying preferences for every user. Um, Before we go ahead, we also like should understand that what kind of content is there and who creates the content. So like I said, in content lot of niches are possible. For example, TikTok, it has a particular kind of genre which is humor and fun, music and dance videos, such kind of content. Whereas in ShareChat, we are trying to cater all kinds of content. So the aim is that information should reach the end user, any kind of information it is. So we have like again jokes, shairis, lot of devotional content, wishes, and romance kind of content. So this is the long tail of content that we are catering to. And the final question that comes before we jump ahead is who creates the content. So what happens is there are a lot of good creators present in very deep roots of India. There are very good shairi writers. There are very good music like singers. And what happens on lot of platforms is at the end there are only few star notes which become popular and which are called as key opinion leaders, or they become the champions on your platform. But in ShareChat, the aim is to create the small microcosms of groups, and they should share the like common taste and common interest, and so and each of them should have their own star note. So we have to bring up lot of such creators from local neighborhoods, from rural parts of India. The question is how do we do it, and what is the incentive for them? So the incentive that we provide on our platform is visibility. And again, this is one objective that we will have to keep in mind while we design the feed itself. So whenever we talk about feed generation, I think most people here would think it is a personalization problem, but it is not just a personalization problem for us. So any new creator that is coming up, any new content that is coming up, we have to give visibility. We have to judge whether it's a good creator or a bad creator, what is the right audience for him, and make sure that he survives. Uh, and again, that gives rise to a lot of local stars along with the star nodes present on a global level. So overall, feed generation is a very important problem. It's a landing page of ShareChat, and our aim is to deliver right content at right time. We have to provide visibility to the creators, like I said. We have to show users what they like. So just showing new content is not an option. We have to adapt to their changing preferences, and we have to discover communities within the content so that we can actually learn from those communities and create further new communities. And eventually, like what kind of feed we are generating, it determines the retention, if users are reopening our app or not. in this set of next billion users. So let's start designing the feed. The first objective in any machine learning problem is to figure out what you're optimizing your algorithm for. So I have to generate this infinite feed of personalized content, right? It should continuously keep on scrolling. In ShareChat, there are multiple objectives that we have to keep in mind while we are designing the field. So popular content is something that we have to show. So this is globally popular content. Like everybody is talking about World Cup in India. So that's the globally popular content. There is a personalized component, which is the relevance content. So I should be capturing users' long-term preferences. So in general, let's say if I have a preference for watching jokes or some videos, entertainment videos, then I should capture that preference, users' long-term preferences. Along with that, lot of new content is breaking out. So we should be also capturing short-term preferences. Again, that goes into the personalized component for the user. We should also capture diversity. So like I said, this set of internet user is very new. Initially, they might have a affinity towards one kind of content, but with time the affinity changes, right? And we have to have some mechanism to discover what kind of content they like and what kind of content they want to see more. So that's where this diversity come out, and where we try to gauge the user's preferences. And then the fresh and trending content, where we keep on pushing the new content that is created on our application. If we further analyze these four objectives, right, what we see is that these are all contradictory to each other. If there is an algorithm which is optimizing, let's say, personalization, it will have a bad impact on diversity or popularity. Similarly, each of these objectives will have contradictory nature in object, like in the problem they are solving. So for example, relevancy is good in personalization, but then it can not give rise to new creators, like I said. Similarly, popular content might focus more on creating the star nodes in our network. It will not be able to show new content or new creators. And again, diversity will help in capturing the user preferences, but it will hamper the personalization itself. So these are all contradictory to each other, and there cannot be one single algorithm that can solve for all these four objectives. It has to be mix of some of the algorithms. So let's discuss like what kind of strategies we can follow and design our algorithms. So, like feed generation, like I said, it's a multiple objectives. These are objectives. Let's look at some of very basic strategies that might come to mind. You might share just so first thing is like you might just show the top shared content in different categories, right? This will just show popularity and diversity. You come up with any sophisticated algorithm to do explore exploit, but just on engagements and time spent on post. So again, you are not using any user variables here, so it will do very good with popularity, diversity, and maybe freshness because you are exploring all as well. So similarly, like, there are several such algorithms, and eventually what we want is a mix of these algorithms which kind of have some percentages and some weightage to each of the objectives that we want to achieve. Let's say we have mixed n number of algorithms, we got this mix, but another challenge that comes is this mix varies for every user. So I might want to see new content, but I like majorly, let's say this for user one, we have his 30% preferences for long term history. So if I show anything less than that, that user might not be interested in looking at that content. So this user preferences also determines like what percentage of each objective I can send, along with the objectives of showing visibility to the users or showing good content on the platform. Another difficulty here is this preferences again changes with the time. So for each user also, right now he has 30% preference, but tomorrow it might have be something else. And it is affected by a lot of events happening, lot of festivals happening. So let's say Diwali is there and this user wants to share something on its WhatsApp group. He might want to see the popular post of Diwali, although he might not have engaged throughout the year with any popular post. So with what time of day it is, with what time of month, what time of year it is, this mix itself changes. And it's a very difficult problem to solve if you like, because you're trying to mix it from the objectives, trying to mix it for every user, and then you're personalizing not just their preferences, but you're trying to personalize how much of that preference to send, right? So this is the overall network that we have in the share chat. We have the consumers. Our feed shows the post. This consumers gives us positive or negative actions in terms of likes, shares, video watches, clicks. So we have all kind of contents on our platform: images, videos, text, gifs, links. So each of them have a separate feedback channel. Again, we have the creators who are creating these posts, and they are residing in different parts of India, so they also have a location. And there is a concept of following, but the idea is that we have to capture this relationship in the algorithm instead of expecting people to follow each other. If we look at the post itself, it has lot of entities. So post has a language. A post can have multiple language as well. So people create post in two languages, or English is like one language, Hindi plus some part of English. It can be a Hindi post but written in a Roman script, or it can be Hindi post written in a Devanagari script. So a lot of such variations are possible. Each post definitely has a genre, and this again genre is a very big hierarchy where we can classify each post as. For example, it can be news, it can be sports, or sports about sports news about a particular game or a particular player, or if a particular player enters, let's say, politics, or he says something, then that again becomes different kinds of genres. So huge number of genres are there. So you see, like, these are all the variables that we have to play with while we are trying to design the feed for those achieving those objectives. um, for each of these variables, what we see is that you have to figure out what kind of content user likes, what kind of content he want to watch at this point of time, and he will have affinity towards certain kind of creators, certain kind of content, certain kind of language, uh, and this all things we have to capture manually via the algorithm. And because we are not taking any explicit feedback from user apart from these signals, so let's talk at what kind of signals can we use while we want to build any machine learning model for generating this feed. So we have this signals like shares, favorites on the post. Again, for videos, we have video play time. Favorites is kind of a download button. But the problem is, let's say if we try to optimize any one of these objectives, uh, there is very low correlation between the signals. So if I use like as a signal, it will cater to a very specific kind of content genre. So for example, wishes and status, it is more shared over WhatsApp instead of just liking it. So if we optimize for share, it will have more wishes and WhatsApp coming on the feed. If we just optimize for, let's say, video playtime, a lot of videos, humor, fun will come up. If we just optimize for like, a lot of celebrities and political content might come up, which are just people liking and what, like, looking at what people are posting, right? So it's very difficult to choose one primary signal in our case. In lot of recommendation problem and feed generation problem, uh, we always get a primary signal. So for example, in advertisement you have click through rates, but here it's very difficult to get one response signal, again because of the heterogeneity of the content that we have. So the question is, like, what should we optimize for? The eventual goal is the repeat behavior and retention on the app, right? So we have to build algorithms which can optimize for this long-term rewards of retention. This falls into the field of reinforcement learning, where we can optimize for small rewards, like the local rewards, and expect some goal to be achieved at the end in long term. But there is a lot of challenges that we face in testing such an algorithm. First thing is, user preferences are continuously changing. Content itself is continuously changing. So every day 1 million new posts are created, and the offline results that you see in the algorithm will not replicate in the online setting. And we cannot A/B test this algorithm for longer periods of time as well, right? So eventually, like, if some algorithm is bad, then it will lead to the churn of the user. So we cannot A/B test for retention objective in longer period of time. So there are a lot of challenges when designing the feed itself as a recommendation engine. So let me talk about how we do it. Again, we have several models, and if we compare the recommendation engines, classic recommendation engines like Netflix or any e-commerce recommendation engine, challenge there is uh, not this much at this scale, because again, user preferences remain same. So if I like a movie today, I might like similar genre 1 year down the line. But here, with every passing moment, with any positive or negative signal, the preference is changing. Uh, so I'll just give a quick walkthrough of what is here, and then we'll deep dive into some of these algorithms. So, like I said, there are multiple objectives. So if you look at generating the popular post on our platform, we are using some kind of multi-arm bandit. Multi-arm bandit has its own challenges when we try to optimize for so many arms, and our arms are continuously changing. We are trying to run rich representations for every user and every item as well. So when we look at the post, again, these are multimodal posts, right? And we have to learn one single representation from audio, video, text, all kind of content, right? So here we have deployed several networks, which comes with their own challenges because it's very Indian data. Again, I'll talk some of the challenges in the next few slides. uh, we learn user embeddings, and again user has their preferences for different types of entities. So in this heterogeneous graph we saw a user can have an affinity towards a content, a user can have an affinity towards location, he can have an affinity towards a creator. So how do we generate this user embedding? And finally what you want is with all these things coming in, and we have a feature store where we capture those signals like shares, favorites, continuously changing signal. How do we build this model which can personalize the user's preferences? We also have to identify trending content, so we have model for this. And at the end we want a model to mix all these things, so there is a mixer model which should mix all this content that is generated from several algorithms, and it should continuously adopt and finally generate the field. So let's talk like what all algorithms are in play and what are challenges there. So again, for popularity ranking, like I said, we are using multi-arm bandits. But in our case, the posts are our arms. So arms are continuously changing, right? And again, feedback signal is very sparse. So a lot of users on ShareChat are passive users. They might not directly provide a feedback of like, share, or favorite. They are just continuously scrolling because they are liking the content. So we have to work with signals like dwell time or time spent on each post. Again, multiple response type is there. So eventually in your multi-arm bandit, what should be the metric that you optimize for? What you set as a score function. And this response type, like I said, changes for every content type, every language. So there are a lot of these challenges. Again, post cold start is one problem, which in multi-arm bandit is affected because of prior. So how do you set a prior for a new post? So like I said, again, 1 million posts are created every day and we don't have any information about them because we have not shown yet to any user. So how do you set the priors? So like multi-arm bandits, actually what we do here is we generate 100 different rankings for the same content, and then we show it to 100 different clusters of the users, again randomly picked, so that we can actually increase the convergence rate. It can converge faster rates. And with this continuously changing arm, if we have a little bit faster rate, then we can actually afford to have little bit latency in figuring out what is popular on our platform. Uh, so this is how like multi-arm bandit generates us the popular scores. We are training for a lot of user embeddings. Again, when you talk about user embeddings, you have to ask what kind of preference you are trying to capture. So you can do collaborative filtering on your data, which is very popular method, but we use autoencoders where we give in our genre distribution for that user on one side as input. We expect the same distribution on the other side, and we train it in an unsupervised way, and the middle layer becomes our representation from the autoencoders. So this representation becomes long-term preference embedding for the users. We use LSTMs and attention mechanisms because we also have to capture the short-term preferences. And by short-term preferences, I mean that in this session or today something might be happening. Let's say there is some news from Karnataka Assembly, and everybody in Karnataka might want to know that news. So I have a short-term preference for that news, intra-session preference, right? So that we learn using LSTMs and attention mechanisms. Again, there are some challenges in what kind of input you can give because uh, we have to very quickly learn these preferences and data is sparse. Finally, like we have to learn preference for creators and location. So we treat it as a graph neural network problem where we have a bipartite graph, creators on one side, users on the other side, and there are edges on which we have to learn the weights. So the eventual idea is we are getting several embeddings and we map it to one single dimension, which becomes our user embeddings. Right? Again, it comes with lot of challenges. Cold start for users is again one problem. Everyday new users are joining our platform. Model usability is one big problem. So this is a challenge which I think a lot of companies face. How frequently you should retrain your model. In our case, it becomes very important uh, because again, content is changing, users embedding is changing, and it will not be stable for longer periods of time. So how frequently should you retrain your model? One way we try to tackle this in a lot of these algorithms is having dynamic features. So like 30-minute features, 1 day features, 7 day features. So they capture different time intervals of their effect. Um, Finally, for post embeddings, we have again, everybody knows a lot of this are buzzwords like CNNs, LSTMs, everybody is using this. But at ShareChat, this comes with their own challenge. So for example, our data is completely new and we need to do a multimodal learning. So, and for, let's talk about a simple model where we try to learn a natural language embedding, right? Uh, we have multiple languages. So either we train a model for different languages, But each language, like I said, it can be a mixed coding. So it can be written in Roman script or Devanagari script. It can be Hindi plus Tamil together. So how do you make sure that your embeddings capture all those variances is very important. Same happens for images where we are trying to capture. Let's say we talk about a simple problem called image classification, right? In our case, what happens is like intra-class variances are very high and inter-class similarity is also very high. So basically it becomes much more difficult for convolutional neural networks to train, and you have to work with the loss function so that it can optimize for. So there are a lot of very India specific data challenges because this kind of data is first time seen, and we cannot just use pre-trained model and fine tune on top of them. Finally, we have like three more models, which is the relevance model, which is taking input from all the models presented in previous slide. The challenge here is we are a many-to-many broadcast, and everything is public. So we have, let's say, if we talk about just 1 month of the post, which are created in last month, there will be 40 million posts, and we have to choose for every user from those 40 million posts, which is not possible at any scale. So with so many active users and so many posts, we cannot do it. So we have a candidate generation model, and then we push it into a wide and deep learning model, which takes all those embeddings, all those affinities, and predicts whether user will engage it or not. Finally, there is a mixing model, which so this is the mixer which I mentioned at the end, and this is a Bayesian optimization problem with online experimentation. So idea is that instead of predefining a preference or predefining a model, you kind of change your parameters in an online way and try to learn what kind of preference is there. So it's an alternative to A/B testing also, because you don't have to keep your parameters fixed. You can continuously keep on changing the parameters, and you can adapt your learning model to the this new set of results that you are getting. And finally, trending model, right now we have not done a lot of ML here, but we have a very nice ad hoc heuristic based model for determining the top trending topics. Again, each of these comes with their own challenges because we have several level of content genres, and each of them affects what kind of topic should be trending. So, like that was overall algorithm. Again, we are kind of trying to come up with lot of new data sets, lot of new algorithms which can be used in this scenario. But there are a lot of data challenges that come. User preferences definitely I have talked about. There is information imbalance. So likes might convey more than favorites. So there is a lot of information imbalance. Data sparsity is definitely there. We cannot learn good representations in any of these models. So we have to give some kind of side informations to each of these models so that they can learn something significant. And finally, the scale is very huge. So we are serving something like 2 billion posts per day. And our feature stores that we have created, it serves over a million queries per second for certain kind of features. And with so many different algorithms in working in an orchestration framework, it's very important that you have your latencies under milliseconds. uh, Overall, like most companies out there, I think I heard a lot of people talking about how do you set up your ML platform. We are again in process of figuring that out, but we have got to one stable stage where we have done our feature stores in a hybrid way, like in Bigtable, BigQuery plus Redis. uh, Again, one feature store, one database cannot answer all your feature store requirements, so that's where we have three. Serving layer, again we have some models running in Kubernetes and TFServe, and any Spark kind of models that we have created, we have done it in Dataproc and EMR. And for stream processing, we are using like Dataflow, but we have experimented with lot of different frameworks and benchmarked, so Flink and Spark as well. And again, we are adopting ones which are very important for us in terms of latencies. So it's very important, like how do you design. You can have a good algorithm, but if we have very high latency in feed generation, that will eventually affect the results of algorithm. So it's very important that we have low latencies here. And finally, these are some of several problems that we have at ShareChat apart from the feed generation. So NSFW detection, duplicate detection. Again, we have to identify text out of images. Uh, there are creation tools as well, which also go under camera intelligence. Transliteration is again one big problem. And finally, in order to bring users on the app, we have to also have very robust notification algorithm, which optimizes click-through rates, right? So, like in conclusion, I will say like we are trying to reach this next billion users, and our aim is to provide information access to all this new generation of internet users. And again, when we see this, like lot of most of our core users coming out of tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which shows that our content strategy and overall our feed is helping them come online and try to get and reach the information which they want. Mm, Thank you. I'm very funny questions.
Okay, thanks, Ayush. We have one question we can take while the next speaker sets up. Um, vigorously raising hand. Yeah, sure. That's it.
Hello.
Yeah, hey.
That's it.
Uh, Great talk.
Yeah,
Um, I had a Can you hear me?
there is some.
Yeah. So I had a basic question.
Yeah.
ShareChat being a vernacular first platform itself, in your item profiles, you were mentioning how you were generating a text profile. How do you handle the vernacular aspect while generating the embeddings? Like let it be Kannada, Telugu, different
Right.
languages.
Yeah. So when we talk about embeddings, item embeddings, like you said, it can be from multiple languages, right? So one approach that we are following is we are training a language specific model, and then we have for every language specific model, we are putting a network at the front. We try to combine all these models into one embedding. And for doing that, we have to capture two more other important parameters, which is what script that text is written in. We say Hindi, but is it written in a Roman script or a Devanagari script? So for that, we are handling it in the model itself, the single language model, so that it can capture the script. Right?
Okay. Yeah, we'll hold the questions because we're nearly out of time for this. Please feel free to reach out to Ayush. He's going to be hanging around here
Yeah.
and ask him any questions. Thank you so much, Ayush. A round of applause for him. Okay, so